be teaching. I normally go into high schools and speak directly to them, so I'm very informal. I use a lot of slang and I occasionally swear. These kids love it when you swear with them, you know. What I'm going to try and do with you guys is orient you guys to what it's like to be a teenager in school, discovering that they're gay, and what that looks like and how difficult that was. Keep in mind while I tell my stories, I'm a bit of a success story. I was a very outgoing student, very outgoing person, and have carried that all the way through my life. So when I was in high school, I didn't have trouble. I got bullied for small periods of time, but I pretty much intimidated the hell out of the bullies. So it made it a lot easier for me. So I'm going to try and give you that picture. First of all, anybody here from southwestern Ontario? Yeah, okay, so you guys understand what I mean when I say I grew up in Elmer? Yeah? Okay, it's an old rural farming, tobacco farming community. Very white, Anglo-Saxon. I actually grew up in a school where it was 2/3 Mexican Mennonite speaking Low German. Okay, and I was a minority as a white English person. Okay, so very, very redneck, if we're going to use that term. It was terrifying discovering that I was gay. I didn't actually realize anything about myself other than I loved sports and I was really close with all my girls and no big deal until we moved to Ingersoll. And Ingersoll's a mildly bigger town, but when I was there, it was about 7,000, 8,000 kids. And I thought, hey, yeah, big city, right? Yeah. It was a big city for me. It was terrifying. So I went to the school. I was doing well. I was a popular kid, always good. I was great at sports. Did really great in class. Went to high school. Was kind of okay for grade 9. I wasn't doing too bad. And had a friend who was kind of the head of the athletic council, head of the student council. Really good friend of mine. And I literally woke up one morning and discovered I was gay. Because I went to bed, Jen and I were friends, and I woke up cuddling her and was like, oh yeah, this is different. This is a really weird feeling for me. And I was 14 and I was terrified. And I was very fortunate. Jen was her name at that time. She was very outgoing in the school, but she was so scared that she would lose everything if people discovered that she was gay. So not only did I face my own questions, but I also had to hide everything to save her career and her future. She's gone on now to be a doctor, so I'm glad I did that then, but it was not very good. So grade 9, people started to realize that there was something different about me. Not only was I no longer spending time with my friends, but I was spending a lot of time with Jen, who was, one of the OAC students. I think I just dated myself by saying OAC. She was one of the OAC students, and I was a little grade 9 hanging around with all of them. I got a lot of backlash, not just from students, but also from educators and from teachers who didn't enjoy the little grade 9 kicking around with, their all-star athlete, their all-star, student council leader, etc. I remember at one point I was hauled into a staff washroom by the head of the phys ed department, who screamed at me about making her, Jen, look bad, and that I was ruining her chances at university, and I was ruining her chances at all these things. And we weren't openly gay at this point. Nobody knew. I thought we were being closeted. Like, I didn't think anybody knew. I thought we were all secretive and not very good at that. When Jen left high school, I was alone at that school. I didn't realize how much I had ostracized myself from my peers, or even from the staff, by that year when Jen was there. And all of a sudden, I was terrified, seriously terrified. It was the first time in my life I experienced bullying. I would get to school in the morning and open my locker, and there would be letters in there with death threats. Some absolutely horrendous things that were said, and I was very quiet about it. I was, at this point, to kind of situate you guys, I was a world champion martial artist at about this point, and I was training and competing for world champs. The last thing I wanted to do was to tell everybody that A, that I was gay, or B, that I was getting bullied, because how embarrassing does that look? I have a bunch of students whom I'm lecturing on a daily basis, and like, be strong, take out those bullies. And here I am getting death threats in my locker, and I don't even know who is saying these things to me. Because they, big fighter, nobody wants to throw down in the hallway in case they get beat by a 120-pound girl. So they got nothing to prove there, but in my locker, and the things that these letters would say, I couldn't even believe that people would say these things to me. Like, I didn't even know them. Jen and I broke up that year, and I think it was the closest I ever was to really questioning what I was doing and whether it would be even worth it for me to keep going. She was in university, and I was now alone. And by alone, I mean nobody spoke about it. I'm in a small town, small community. As far as I was concerned, there were 2 gay people in the world. There was me, and there was Jen. And Jen was in university, and I knew about Melissa Etheridge at that point, too. And but Melissa was really far from me. I don't know. I but she didn't come calling. So, so I was very alone and I was very terrified. And, 14, 15-year-old student. And I think this is the point where I'm going to introduce my first hero. And this was vice principal of my school at the time. And I remember getting called to the office one day. Okay, this can't be good, right? Over the loudspeaker, Joe Colby come to the office. So stroll up there, and she walks in dead serious face and closes the door behind me. And I'm sure she could have lost her job for this at the time. But she sat down and she's like, Jill, listen, I think you're gay. Okay, thanks. That's great, yeah, good one. She had 2 daughters who were gay. And she was the first adult, really, who understood what it was like to kind of experience some of those things. Both of her daughters had been bullied. Both of her daughters were into university. And she was the first person that was willing to speak about it. My parents, I should also tell you, were very supportive, like beyond supportive. My mother asked me if I was gay before I thought I was, and her only emotional breakdown was whether I would get married and have kids. She was terrified she wasn't going to have grandkids. But once we got past that, she's good. My father as well, they divorced, that's the other thing, they divorced right about the same time that Jen and I broke up, so it was a really bad time. But I tried to make him hate me, and we're in a good fight over it, blah, 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 whatever from my dad. I'm like, yeah, Dad, well, I'm gay. And he kind of looks at me and goes, yeah, I know. So right back to me and screaming that, nothing changed. Right? So anyway, this vice principal at the time was the first person really that I felt I could talk to. Somebody that could kind of mentor me through it. And we had to do it behind closed doors. It's nothing like it is today with this kind of forum here. I had no idea that there even were gay people, let alone somebody I could talk to as an educator. Now, she kind of lit a fire under my ass, if I'm going to be very honest with that, because I went back in grade 11 ready to break down every boundary there ever was in a rural community. I did a project in my social class. This was my second year, my sociology teacher. And he let me get up in front of the class and come out openly as a grade 11 student. And I thought he was ready, like he's got his books ready, he's ready to run me out, like, jacket over the head at the door, and things go bad in there. And it was, I remember, I didn't come out originally, I was kind of scared. And I talked about homosexuality and tried to really educate the class first. And then somebody asked me a question at the end of it, and I answered it in first person. And the class just went dead silent. I'm sure you guys have all had a group of students go dead silent. And it's not pretty. You panic for a few minutes there. But my advice to the students and what I did then really made a difference, and that makes me love this whole organization, is the fact that I told them all that ignorance breeds hate. And I know that the reason why such a rural community is so scared of anybody who's different is because they don't know. Not only don't they know, but they have no one to talk to about it. They don't have a role model that they can discuss what is it to be gay. So what I did to my class is I opened up and I said, if you've got the guts to ask me, I've got the guts to answer, but make sure you want to know. I don't know. High school hallway. Okay, so they all run out to all their friends, hey, Jill's gay, yeah. Okay, and I walk out into the hallway, the first question I get, somebody corners me and they're like, hey, I hear you'll answer my question. Here we go. So what do lesbians do in bed? Thanks, guys. Okay. But what I did is I really did keep my promise, and I told these kids everything. If they wanted to know, I went into explicit detail. And what developed I did. I made it so they didn't want to come back and ask another question. It was good, very good. It took a lot of guts, but yeah, it was pretty fun. It took a lot of guts from them too to keep asking questions, because they did. Like, they came back with some really good stuff. But what developed from there is my social teacher there, he loved the presentation, and so what we started to do is we started running kind of little organizations like this, and I would go into health classes, because the health system then didn't discuss anything for gay and lesbian youth on sexual health, even let alone sexual identity. They didn't even know whether they should or shouldn't be using condom. I remember one of my teachers telling me that lesbians couldn't get STDs because there was no penetration. I'm like, oh, sweet, like, it's good for me, but that's the level of education there was in the system then, and that's what the kids are being taught. So we started kind of developing our own little program, and like I said, I was a success story, because what I had is I had the opportunity to talk to kids, to become that role model to younger students. And I remember my OAC year, doing the last one and having a grade 10 boy, actually, come up to me and tell me that he was openly gay and that he had never been bullied. He'd never even had somebody call him a bad name in the school, because that's just not what we did anymore. It wasn't cool to do that at our school. So total success story there. I had a lot of backlash from educators, more so than I did from students. The students were pretty resilient, and they came around and kind of developed their own thing, but the older generation teachers made my life miserable. I ran for student council prime minister in my last year and was pulled aside by my advisor and told not to because they didn't want an openly gay prime minister. I applied to be a youth counselor with our grade 8 school at the time to go on a trip. I applied in grade 12 and was told I couldn't come because I was a pedophile and couldn't be left alone with young girls. Yeah, quietly on the side. And then, this is 13, 14 years ago now. But I was accepted the next year after fighting a fair bit harder and threatening to call human rights. I was allowed to go, but I couldn't be left alone in a building with the girls at any point. I had to have a staff member with me at all times. I guess my greatest piece of advice for you, already, you guys should give yourselves a round of applause just for being here, because what you're doing is you're giving students a chance to come to somebody, especially the students that see you here, somebody that they can go to talk to about these things. Because what they lack is a mentor, and what they lack is a role model. And I know that from experience, both as the student that needed a mentor, and as a student that was a mentor for these guys. And of course, it's easier for them to talk to a student. When I go in and do this, I do this in like baggy pants, and I look as much like an 18-year-old little girl as I can. And it works well, because they can relate to me and they can talk to me. The other really big piece of advice is when you're having these conversations, don't stick to political correctness. Okay, especially, I know you guys listen to kids talk in the hall all the time. And the one thing that I found when speaking to these kids is that they are not able to use the correct terms. Do you know what I mean? They don't know whether it's appropriate to call me gay, or a lesbian, or even dyke, right? They don't know what these words mean. It means nothing to them other than slang words they hear thrown in the hallway. So when you do have these conversations, I understand that they have no idea what they're talking about, but they do need those answers anyway. So let the boundaries go, especially for the staff that are part of the community. Let the boundaries go and let them talk to you about whatever they can come up with. And don't be afraid to tell them what lesbians do in bed, because they actually like it. And that's pretty much it for me. I hope I've really helped orient you guys, and I can't wait for some questions after. Thanks, Steele.